Friends, you're here with me, Jen the Taxidermy Witch, and I'm back from a beautiful lunch with a beautiful friend, and I want to get back to reading this Conjure book. I'd really like to finish it today, or tomorrow, and let me show you the book that we'll be reading from. Okay, here's the author. I think her name is Star Casas. And so far we've read the whole book except the introduction, and I'm going to skip the card reading bit of the divination. If you want me to make a video on that and do some examples of some layouts that they have in here, just let me know. I'd love to do it for you. But as for right now, I'm moving on to Spirits of Conjure, because there's loads to talk about. There are there's spirit ancestors of Conjure, and then there are actual, what do you call them? Historical ancestors of Conjure, okay? Like real people that we look up to and that we can ask to channel, you know? So let's get into some reading and just start this whole section on Spirits of Conjure. The Spirits of Conjure are the ancestors. And remember, the ancestors are the slaves, the original slaves that came from Africa to North America and had to bring their magic over and hide it within the religion they were forced to practice. Okay? So, if you don't use this, it's not Conjure. It's still a working. It's just not Conjure. That's what this book is telling me. Alright. Spirits of Conjure are the ancestors, elders, and spirits that walk with a conjure worker. They are to be uplifted and honored, because without the ancestors, this work would not exist, and neither would this book. If you seek to do this work, then you must understand the culture of those who first brought this work over here through slavery. Slavery is not something folks are comfortable talking about. Definitely a true statement right there. That's why it's really hard for me to make videos and talk about things like this. But I'm glad that I'm doing it, because I've already had a few comments that are thanking me. Thank you for touching on such a controversial topic, especially about talking about this in witchcraft. And you guys are welcome. Thank you for supporting me in talking about this topic. And thus far I've not had anybody unsubscribe, so thank you. Because I appreciate everything that you have to say, and I'm so glad that you feel the same way. Okay, slavery is not something folks are comfortable talking about. Folks would rather not even acknowledge that it happened. But it did happen. So many folks have completely forgotten about these people and what they went through. So many wish to claim Conjure, but without discussing the suffering and the terror that this work comes from. I've never been one to beat around the bush. My mama warned me when I was a young child to watch out for fast talkers. What folks call conjure, hoodoo, or root work is a way of life for me and my family. I was raised on stories told to me by my mama, sister, and elders. This work is what folks used to call old wives' tales before the internet put it out there for the world to see. It was not something that was shared and passed around as it is now. It was family traditions or an elder teaching you a few bits of knowledge here and there. It was to be honored and respected, but today it has turned into a money-making machine, and the ancestors are long forgotten. Super, super sad. Not by us, they're not long forgotten, but in general, I think that's what it's trying to relay. Long forgotten. Where am I? Guides, show me where I am. Those who were captured and brought over here in the bottoms of ships aren't even a memory for some who claim this work. Folks need to remember that anything that has bloodshed on it is powerful. That is definitely true. This work has never been about money. It's about the community and helping folks who need help. I've been paid in everything from food to my rooster Houdini. Now, me and a couple of other witches I know, we get coin for spell work. You need to respect this in all forms, and if it says not to take coin for this working, you shouldn't do it. And it says instead do barter trade. You know, I'm doing this working for you. You're going to give me some eggs from your chicken. Deal. Excellent. Thank you so much. See you next time. So that's something I'm keeping in mind for sure, because I want to pay complete honor and respect to this magic as it is. I don't want to change much if I don't need to. I've been paid in everything from food to my rooster Houdini, who I got for a job I did for a fellow who needed help. There is not enough money to buy that rooster from me. It was a good trade. The point I'm trying to make is that folks who are gifted for work should honor the ancestors and the culture this work comes out of. Folks need to stop trying to add or take away from this work. That's what I just said. I love it. It's an insult to the ancestors and those who were raised in this culture. It doesn't need fixing. Instead, what needs to happen is folks need to understand where this work comes from and go from there. I write books in a way to honor the ancestors and my culture and to help folks learn the work. If folks don't know how to do the work, I have found that they just mix whatever they do with the information they have found. I call this mixin' and moxin' and whitewashing the work. That's super cute. This work is hidden in the whole culture, not just the magic of it. Lessons are learned in the stories that are told to us as children. Works are hidden within some of those stories. The elders were very wise, and the ancestors have never been forgotten. They live on in every lesson learned. Outsiders rarely understood the culture of the work. Here's an example. Some folks consider the tales of Briar Rabbit and Tar Baby to be racist. But to a child raised in a family where this work is part of their daily lives, those tales hold valuable lessons and conjure secrets. I'll have to look into what the latter is. I know what the Briar Rabbit is, but not the the latter. The Tar Baby. Briar Rabbit has been traced all the way back to Africa from stories told of a trickster. As children, these stories were told to us to teach lessons we would need as adults. They also show a mindset that most ritual Southern children were taught, or most rural, out in the country, rural Southern children were taught. For those unfamiliar with Briar Rabbit and Tar Baby, their stories are retold and reclaimed by the African-American author and storyteller Julius Lester in this book, Tales of Uncle Remus. The Adventures of Briar Rabbit, Puffin Books, 2006. In the story Briar Rabbit and the Tar Baby, Briar Rabbit's enemy Briar Fox sets a trap for Briar Rabbit by making a dolly called Tar Baby from tar and turpentine. Wow. Both of these items are used to conjure for protection and uncrossing work. Briar Fox hid when he heard Briar Rabbit approach. He was beside himself with excitement. He just knew he had Briar Rabbit this time. Briar Rabbit comes along and speaks politely to Tar Baby, but of course Tar Baby can't answer him. Politeness is something all Southern children are taught from a very young age. Even if you can't stand someone, you better be polite in the public. Briar Rabbit addresses Tar Baby 2 or 3 times and then loses his temper. I was taught as a young child that if you lose your temper, you can't think clearly, and if you're not thinking clearly, then you're headed for trouble, just like Briar Rabbit in the story, because he didn't look at the whole picture. Briar Fox was having a good enough laugh. He knew he had his target. Briar Rabbit totally lost it and demanded that Tar Baby take off her hat and be polite and speak. Briar Rabbit said, "I'll teach you a lesson," and he swung at Tar Baby and his paw got stuck in the tar. Did he stop and think? No, he had all his paws stuck by the time his temper was high. Finally, Briar Fox jumped out laughing and called, "I got you now!" Briar Rabbit then realized that he was in a mess. While Briar Fox was gloating, Briar Rabbit came up with a plan. "Please don't throw me into the briar patch," he cried. "Roast me, hang me, do whatever you want to, but please don't throw me into the briar patch." Like any good conjure worker, Briar Rabbit let his enemy think he had won. Good to note. Briar Fox flung Briar Rabbit into the briars as hard as he could, and Briar Rabbit let out a horrible scream that made the fur stand up on Briar Fox. Then there was only silence. Briar Fox stood listening, waiting for painful sounds of misery to come from the briar bushes, but there was nothing. Then Briar Fox heard something calling his name. He turned around and looked up the hill. Briar Rabbit was sitting on a log, combing the tar out of his fur with a wood chip and looking smug. Briar Rabbit sang, "I was bred and born in the briar patch, Briar Fox. I'm so tired of saying briar, by the way, but I gotta get through this, for Pete's sake. I've already gotten into it. Briar Rabbit teaches us to never underestimate an enemy and always make sure that we keep a cool head. Don't ever jump in with both feet or you might end up like the rabbit or your smugness might have you looking like the fox. As you can see, there is information in here that teaches a child how to act and to always be aware of what is going on around them. There's also conjure information hidden within the story, tar, turpentine, and briars. All of this comes from the ancestors and the knowledge that they brought with them over from the slave ships. Too often this information has been removed from the lessons of the work because outsiders don't know or understand about the culture. Now that is really interesting, and why, if you want to get into this, you need to understand about the ancestors and get into that slave culture. Because also, when we talked about offerings, and I did a video on the offerings out of these chapters, you're going to need to honor them with offerings, so you need to know all about what they like, the foods that they like, the beverages that they like, the smoke that they like. All that's important, you guys. Okay, so we're getting really close to historical ancestors of culture, okay? Yee-hoo! Are we done with the briar story? Yes. But where are we? Storytelling was a big part of my growing up. My mom always made us look at things differently. I've written about a few of the ancestors, but it isn't in any way all of them. You can see the power they had and the pride to try to achieve a freedom which only brought them death. Honor them as you would your own ancestors if you are going to do this work. For without them, there would be no work. It is important to remember the ones who struggled for freedom in a time when very few of color were free. Nowadays, they are all but forgotten. Now, let me tell you about some of the ancestors and spirits of Conjure. The information in this section is inconsistent. Some but not all of these ancestors and spirits have been detailed rituals or altars associated with them. I've offered the information where it applies. Please feel free to let spirit or the ancestors themselves guide you to create personal altars for the others if you so desire. Okay, interesting. We're at 14 minutes. We can probably get through a couple of the historical ancestors of Conjure. All right. Or we could leave it off there and then just do one at a time through the historical ancestors of Conjure, which is kind of what I think we should do. Yeah, one or two at a time. Alright, we'll leave off there. So come back and watch my next episode in order, because it will be on historical ancestors of Conjure. Alright guys, thanks for joining me, Jen the Taxidermy Witch, for another video here in my room. Have a beautiful day.